Oh, yeah.
Welcome everybody to our July masterclass.
Good evening, good morning, and wherever you are across the planet. It's great to connect with you guys again.
I hope you're a little bit warmer than we are in Australia, because today it rained all day and it was down around about 5 degrees.
A little cold.
And I know some of you in the UK have had a beautiful sunny day today, because I've heard from you. So very warm welcome to everyone. Joining us in this masterclass is Susan Walling, so I'll introduce you to her a little later, and she's going to be talking with you about some of the experiences she's had, of certainly when she's been on our class, but what sort of happened to her since she has been on our class. It's been a bit of a journey, hasn't it, Susan? Yes. So, because you've been hearing from us so much this year, we wanted to just bring in some more of your experiences, because you certainly learn a lot from hearing, but you certainly learn when you sometimes when you hear somebody else's experience, you'll pick up something, especially for you. Some logistics for tonight. If you have any questions that you would like to ask us at any time during this masterclass, all you need to do is either write a question or pop your hand up. Before we start, though, I'd love it if somebody can just make a comment in the chat or questions area, just to let us know that you're able to hear us and that everything is okay. Hi, Brian. Moira. Great. Thanks.
Hey, Moira.
Good. Thank you. I just want to...
So Greece is working. Is anybody else?
Yeah, Greece is there. You haven't taken up. Oh, Padma's got her hand up. So
nice.
We'll just have a quick chat to her.
Sandy, Annie,
Andrula, all our UK friends. I'm just going to unmute Padma. Hi, Padma. Hi, Padma. No, not having a chat with me. I'll pop you back on. And I see Teresa, and just come down. Teresa, I'm going to take Teresa Dialak. I'm just going to take you off mute. Hi, Teresa. Hello.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
Hello. How are you?
Good.
I'm fine. Thank you.
Have you got a question?
It's very nice, because it's 11 o'clock a.m. So I'm wake up, because these webinars are in the middle of the night. So today is perfect.
Perfect. Well, I hope if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to pop your hand up. Do you have a question at the moment for us?
No, at the moment, but I have somewhere. I will come with a question. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Lovely to talk to you. I'm going to
Thanks, Teresa.
I'm just going to put you back on mute.
Thank you.
No worries.
Hello.
Okay, so we're ready to go with July's masterclass. Brilliant. All right. So I just want to start off with some questions, and we've had lots of questions and comments, but this question came from a few of you, and especially from Sandy Gull in the UK. In a previous couple of our masterclasses, we mentioned how one of our participants in the UK,
in the
US, sorry, Juanita, was using this with her clients, was using Russian knowledge with her clients. And I don't know if you can remember, but back then I was talking about how much work she had done previously. She had done a lot of different courses. She has a lot of pieces of equipment, including a rife machine, and so she's got a lot of technology, and she has a lot of light. And in her email back to us in her testimonial, she talked about how she did some controls, and two of the controls she did for one particular client was around a skin cancer, which apparently dropped off after about 3 days after she had done the control, and the other one was in reference to somebody that had this client that also had cysts on the ovaries, who went back to the doctor and to see what had actually happened, and there were no cysts at all when she had her scan. So some of you, including, as I said, Sandy, came back and said, well, find out what control she actually used. So when I contacted Juanita, I asked her, what is it that she actually used? And she said, the only tool I use with my clients is the 4 principles for controlling reality. She said, this is what I use when I do a control. So I just thought I'd go through it again just to refresh your memory, because all of you, I know you're all at different levels. There's some people that have just done Soul Code. There's some people who've done the next series, which is Transition. And then there's a great amount of you that have been on one of our live 3-day transformation workshops. So I know you're at all different levels, but all of you at some stage have had been introduced to the 4 principles for controlling reality. Every illness, every event has a geometric shape. Now, in this diagram, I've got some nice round spheres here, but sometimes in your consciousness, for instance, when you see an illness, it doesn't necessarily have to be perfect geometry. It mightn't look like a sphere or a square. It might be abnormal in its shape. So this structure represents the geometric shape of the illness, the health issue, or the event. The next step that we do after we've identified or created the geometric form of it, then we label the geometric form with our objective. What is it that you want to do? Removal of all negative information from whatever organ it is that you're wanting to use. Or it could be harmonize my relationship with my husband. So whatever the objective is, that's your second part. And then you look at the form and you notice whether that form has a colour. Now, for some people that aren't clearly visual, you can get a sense of what the colour might be. And I know some people when they first start off with Russian knowledge go, really, is that the colour? Am I just making it up? Yeah, the colour you sense or you see is exactly what you're meant to see. Your in consciousness is very creative. At the start, you mightn't think that when you're first learning. The next part is if you are working with a health issue, then you go on to step 3, which is change the form, change the colour, or change the location. So you could change the form, for instance, if it looked like it wasn't in not a spherical shape, if it looked like it was like an ink splot, then you could change the form to a square or a cube or a sphere, anything that you want in your consciousness. Or you could change the colour. So imagine you saw the colour as a dirty green and you wanted to change it to a vibrant green. You can do that also in your consciousness, or you can just change the location. So in your imagination, you can change the location either to the left or the right or up or down, and this is then changing the location. And when you change any of that, all the location, what you're doing is changing the information, because where it was previously held was the information in time and space of where it was an illness. And when you move it in location or change the form or change the colour, you actually then change the information structure. So you then illuminate this particular form. So you send your light and the creator's light to that and illuminate the form, because the 2 things that are extremely important in that is your objective, and also noticing what is changing in your consciousness. And of course, then to fix what you've changed, then you send your light to it. Because when you send your light, from a science point of view, what they see is that photons of light actually happen. They actually, as soon as you put your concentration on it. Now, if you're wanting to change an event, then you can use the step 4 where you blow it up. If you're using a health issue, you move down to step 4 where you actually expand it or shrink it to a dot. So either way, you can see it blowing up like a balloon, or you can change the information structure and shrink it right down to a dot. And when you do that, you've changed the structure of the information no longer is as it was before, and you're illuminating that. So that's the principles that Juanita was using when she was actually working with her clients. And the only reason she started doing it with her clients was because she noticed the changes with her. So that was the biggest thing that she noticed with that. I don't know if anybody has any questions about the 4 principles of controlling reality. If you do, please feel free to just ask a question. Sue Millett hasn't got any sound. Is it just you? Yes, Sue, it's just you. Okay, so you might want to go in and come out again. So just to let you know that this session today is recorded. So after the session, we will make sure that in the next 24 hours that you have a recording of it. So we'll leave that open for everybody again to do that.
And one thing was we ask you all to, this is for your development. Please don't share it with other people that haven't done the work before.
Yeah, absolutely. So certainly before so Anne's question was, when do you insert the macro? Well, you insert the macro before you actually do the control. When we start off the control, we usually start off with I'm in spirit, I see and act as the creator sees and acts, so acknowledging that you are the creator as well. And then your macro, which is rescue and harmonious development for the planet nor mankind. So this is where you start off with that, and then you start using your this would be the method. Then you start your visualizing and changing the information structure. So Sandy was asking, so if you want to say harmonize my finances, then I would do it up to step 3. Yes, so the first 3 steps are about changing things in the external world. If you're looking for health issues, then you would move from step 1 to down to step 4. But, you know, really have a play in your consciousness and notice what's changing. There's never a wrong way to do things, because the only thing that will happen is that you won't get any results. So Padma was asking, so does we need to do it on behalf of her clients, or does the clients do the control steps? So I would say what happens is that with words, then you take your client through the steps. So I think Susan's going to talk a little bit more about what she does, because Susan is a kinesiologist and has done a lot of different modalities. So that's what we've brought her here today, to clarify some of that. So let's talk. Let me really answer that, Padma, when we get to Susan. But yes, certainly I know from my conversation with Juanita, she sees the geometric form of the information as far as what is abnormal. And so she's also seeing it in her consciousness. It's like one of the reasons why I came to Russian knowledge. I think I've shared with you before, you know, Brian had a health issue, but I didn't actually have a health issue. But in my practice as a practitioner, I was seeing matrices and number codes. And I was just seeing it in my mind's eye, and I certainly didn't know what I could do with them. And I was just feeling like I was making it up, imagining that I was placing it on the client in a particular area. So as you start to develop, we've given you the grounding building blocks, but along the way, you will start noticing that you will make your own subtle changes to things in your consciousness. You'll notice it's something different. And here's what you do. You start having a play with it and notice what is actually different, what's changing. Yes, Andrula, question to Andrula. Yes, Andrula, you can get the client to say, I'm in spirit, because even on the level of thought and words, they're still making a statement. They're still acknowledging that. I usually, when I was working with clients, I just give them a little preempt. So as far as giving them a little bit of education, like, why am I saying this? So I would explain to them that they are operating from the action part of their soul. And here you acknowledge that on all levels, you are one and the same as the Creator, because there is that little spark of light that is in every cell of your body. So this is the photon of light, the same as the Creator, and this is acknowledging that the Creator and I can work together I have the same abilities as the Creator. And you certainly know from your practice that this is so when you start noticing the controls. Okay, so thanks. I think that Sandy's gone. For what other issues apart from health would you use step 4?
It's easy, blockages.
Yeah.
So if you're dealing with, say, a cash flow issue or a client issue and there's a blockage, or you're dealing with government, there's lots of blockages. Well, we were actually talking about some of the other systems today, like the telco company or the gas company.
Because we talked about this for health, really, but you could also use it, because I think when we clean up your soul at Soul Pass, we also look at deforming the information. So, in essence, was specifically when we learned it taught to us as health issues, but you can certainly have a look and see applying the same principle as looking at events as well.
But, test it out, Sandy, and just feed back to us how it goes for you. But, because RCK is a lot about experimentation.
Yeah, absolutely. All that Grabovoi and all the teachers of Grabovoi are giving you is from their perception of what's happened and the structure that we've been given to show you. So hopefully that will help. So I like to use this because if you can't remember anything else, the 4 principles of controlling reality are pretty easy to have a look at. Every information structure has a point of change within it where you put your perception to make change. And if you go through the 31-day concentrations, each step where it's building on each other, Grabovoi is talking about looking for the point in each area of perception where you make the change. And once you discover that, you become an expert at being able to control your reality. So that's good to get your handle on, and thanks for all those questions. Let me just check and make sure nobody else has got their hand up. No, great. Good. Thanks for that. All right. So some world news stuff that I've got for you at the moment. You might be noticing, especially if you're on Facebook, there's a lot of activity in the world of Grabovoi, and certainly we are seeing that from his legal area. And specifically, where Grabovoi's focus is at the moment is in these 3 areas. The first area is in his area of manufacturing. If anybody has read any of his books, especially Resurrection and Eternity Now Is Your Reality, it talks about the crystal module. And crystal module is a crystal device that the Russian government, and who else has it?
He has one. Russian government has one.
And where they're able to put this device on any map and it will predict the global disasters that are going to happen.
Yeah, it's kind of a look-ahead system. So it says if there's an earthquake coming or a tsunami or some natural disaster, it'll predict and alert them to it so that they can do controls and that to try and harmonise it and slow it and
use it.
So take the edge off it.
Yeah. So this, as I said, this crystal module exists. The Russian government have it, and Grabovoi has started along the tracks of manufacturing the device and a number of these other devices that he has. He has many, many patents if you start looking, and so he's starting to actually put this into production and putting the companies into play that's going to start handling this.
Mm-hmm.
The other area where Brian was also received some information from the legal department of Grabovoi, probably nearly 6 months ago, about Grabovoi's work with solar energy and heating for electricity, and he has done a lot of research with that, and he's now at the stage of starting to roll that out with companies with their agreements for manufacture and for people who can provide it and do installation and maintenance for it. So he's really now focused on that particular area as well as, and the third part of it is his university programs, which are going worldwide. So for his promotion of his works, his technologies, and also his trademarks. So this is where his focus is. And as I said, to you probably a good 6 months ago. This year you're going to see an explosion of Grabovoi's works throughout the world, and it seems to be ramping up this 6 months. Certainly, we certainly got some more information from his legal department on Friday night that's certainly saying that, this is all being ramped up in a big way.
And you'll see more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just thought we'd keep you up to date with the Grabovoi news and what's happening. Let's have a look what's next. Whoops. The other thing I'd like to talk about was why we don't heal you. Now, we have people that ring us and email us and say, can you heal me? And they'll, lay out all their illnesses and say, what are you going to do to fix me? And even, people still ask Grabovoi to do the healing for him. Now, Grabovoi says in his book, Resurrection and Eternity Now is Your Reality, that in the past, that's what he used to do. He used to spend a lot of time in concentration on helping people to restore and help themselves back to health. But what would happen, he said, is that if in their consciousness they still had the negative information, that would be enough for them to bring back the information of that particular disease again. And, it's very, very true because when Brian, and I've mentioned this before to some of you, when Brian had his cold at the start of the year, or this cough he had going on, immediately his mother and father and Brian's and family and daughter started going, oh, Brian, this is what happened to you when you got, just before you got cancer last time. You better run to the doctors and get a check. You could be having that cancer back. So in their consciousness, they still have the information that keeps them on alert every time Brian...
They have that fear.
Yeah, they have that fear that, it's still going to come. And one of the reasons is that because that's originally what Brian was told by the doctors. Expect to have your cancer back. You're going to be on dialysis for the rest of your life. Your immune system's pretty shot. So there's some of the things, because they were going through the trauma of Brian's cancer when he had it, and they still hold that in there. So when we talk about being able to heal yourself
they had me on the sick list at the church for at least 3 years.
Oh yes, Brian was on the sick list at the Catholic Church, and Brian kept begging his mum and dad, take me off the sick list.
I'm not sick.
You're not sick. The consciousness of everybody in the church is keeping me sick. So, this is where when we certainly go through and start clearing the information that we remember when we go through with you on the matrix work that we do, when we help you to recenter yourself on your physical, energetic, emotional, mental, causal, and etheric. When you start doing that, you start to remove the information on all levels. We'll talk a bit about that a little bit later on. But so just to be aware, and the thing is, we're all moving past the guru model. Sure, it's nice to go and have a treatment with somebody. Sometimes we need to be put on the right path.
And there'll always be room for practitioners. We're not putting you out of a job.
We're not putting you out of a job. And in fact, Brian's been doing a little bit of mentoring with people. So sometimes you need a third person just to help you find your way. But in essence, you need to do the work. You need to do the work. And I mention that because in Grabovoi's book, The Teachings of Grigori Grabovoi, which is about his teachings, in that he actually mentions in the book this particular excerpt, which I wanted to put out there for you today. And he said, firstly, I put into my guidelines the need to proceed from an adequate system of reality control. So this is about you learning how to be able to control your reality. So a system that. The adequacy is that currently there are many global destructive systems, and they can be external, such as from space. Now, I don't think he's just talking about aliens here. He's also talking about the things in space.
Sunspots.
So, the solar flares and lots of different things, and planets and asteroids that can come. Then he talks about, therefore, the first element of each action is the system of salvation or rescue. This is, for example, a system of rescue from a possible global catastrophe. But the rescue from the possible global catastrophe is such that, first of all, it is necessary to make it happen at the inner harmony of a person. And the person at the same time should be aware that he is free and nothing threatens him. So here, clearly, he says what we've been talking about all the time with you is, if you want to change what's happening in your external reality, because your external reality is mirroring to you how you are going in the external environment, what's happening as well in your internal environment, then you need to harmonize it in yourself first and see it as already harmony, that nothing can harm you or cause you to be out of alignment. And when you realign yourself and get calm, then you'll start to see that those different feelings or thought patterns that start to come in, or events that are playing in the external reality, are just like a game that you're in. So it's very important, as we said, to harmonize it within you, and then your external world will actually start to harmonize. So here, guys, just remember to bring it back to yourself. And
yeah, you can work it out in the external world if you want to, but it'll take forever. If you go within, it's quite quick.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I know Susan's just dying to say something about that. So we're going to give you a little bit more from her perspective. So, yes, excellent. So the spotlight for this first time, interrogation. She feels like she's under interrogation from you, and that's not true. We're not going to interrogate you, Susan. But so why we brought Susan and I go back, nearly 4 or 5 years ago. We both attended forensic healing almost when it first came out in Melbourne, and it's a kinesiology sort of model. And at that time, I just thought it was pretty good at sorting out people's issues. And certainly that you went on and did some practice with that, as I did as well. So your background in kinesiology. What else have you got under your wing there?
Oh, gee whiz. I've got a lot. I have studied a lot. I've studied for the last, I'd say 8 years. So diploma in kinesiology. I've done forensic healing.
Yep.
I've done 10 levels of rekindled ancient wisdom. I've done
10 levels.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There are 10 levels.
There are neurolinguistic programming. I've done timeline therapy. I've done all levels of liquid crystals. And the list goes on. I've done a lot.
Yeah, you've done a lot, a lot of us have. And I know
metaphysics, parapsychology.
Oh God, it goes
blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. And I know that a lot of people there have done a lot of things in the past, that a lot of people listening today have done a lot of things in the past. So what is it that brought you to us? Because, seriously, you and I haven't seen each other except on Facebook, thank God, So what sort of brought you along to our workshop earlier this year?
Well, when you first began offering the Russian knowledge in a workback, when you first started offering to teach the Russian knowledge in the workshops, I had my eye on it back then. That was would have been about 2 years ago, and I think, as you say in some of your marketing, you don't find the Russian knowledge, it finds you.
Yeah.
And so 2 years later, at the beginning of the year, it was time. I think it was around February, March that I did it. Yeah, February, March, and I just knew that there was so much more, and I had been following your posts on Facebook, and I loved the things that you were posting, and I really understood through a few of the modalities I had done based on sacred geometry and numbers.
Yeah.
It was kind of on a similar platform, except higher. So I thought, I'm going to have some of that. And then I decided to do it. Yeah.
So you went through the 3 days. How would you compare it, I guess, to what you've done before? Because you've done a lot of clearing things before.
I have, absolutely. And I think, as you were touching on before, Brian was saying, you can change it as much as you want on the outside. You might spend a whole lifetime doing that. And but I can say from experience with the Russian knowledge, once you start to change the inner world with these controls, change follows quickly.
Yep. you were sharing with me a little bit too about because your partner dropped you off, didn't he?
Oh, yes, yeah. So I was in a very karmic relationship. I've been in the same relationship for 8 years, and we had studied a lot together, and this was, with so many things that I had done previously, I thought, oh, wow, okay, for sure this is going to, break us up. Nut didn't do it. Just, it was just a Band-Aid sort of thing. And then doing the Russian knowledge and part of the controls that we did, I think, that had made a huge impact was clearing karma.
Yeah.
And, amongst other things. And, it really shifted my energies big time.
Because he picked you up and he made a comment, didn't he?
Yeah, he said, what have you done to your energy? You completely shifted. And he was saying that for three or 4 weeks after the course.
Yeah.
He kept noticing that my energy had shifted. And I think that he felt a little bit left behind. And I went to do the controls on him and he wouldn't let me do them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you had a particular objective in the workshop.
Yeah. My objective was to experience enlightenment in my life and in my business. Yeah. Big call.
Yeah, gosh.
Big call.
So how are you doing?
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. I can say that enlightenment's all about allowing in the source, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in that process of embodying more enlightenment in my life and in my business, certain things had to fall away to allow that to align, and I got exactly what I asked for.
Yeah, exactly. Because, sometimes people feel, when they get onto a new modality and that all of a sudden life's going to, be rosy and they're sort of on that high and you don't sort of expect some of the challenges that pop up along the way, because I know for, even for Brian and I, you always seem to be this seems to be a greater challenge, and you have to find something deep within yourself then to handle that. And you can either go back and try to sort it out the old way, or you can take the tools that you've got in your toolbox and then apply it. So can you tell everyone a little bit what sort of happened for you?
Absolutely. And so, as you can imagine, after an 8-year relationship ended, and it was just like so fast, and so I was in a really bad place. And sometimes when we get into those places, it doesn't matter how many tools you got, you forget to use them.
Yes, of course.
And interestingly, the tools that I was using prior to Russian knowledge that worked fantastically all of a sudden stopped working.
It didn't work anymore.
They weren't working because I had shifted my vibration above, I think, all those tools. So then I began having sessions, some mentoring sessions with Brian, and I haven't looked back.
Because you certainly had some challenges along the way, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just now I'm doing controls every day. So I've worked out a little protocol for myself that is just amazing. And, I think sometimes we need to really, especially as practitioners, you need to really experience things to know, to really know the tool that's just going to snap you back into your heart, and then you can really, if you've been through those dark spaces, then any client or anyone that in your life that goes through that too, you can that they're going to have the same.
Yeah, I experienced that. I was always treating myself on the table too. And you could see where exactly you've already tread the path.
Absolutely.
I want to see your face, Susan.
Come closer. Come closer.
Thanks for that. Yes, Aurora, we need to see Susan's face. So.
Oh.
I'll move that back here.
We'll move Brian out of the way for a little while. Yeah. So I know people are going to ask me, because you hinted before that you have a little protocol you do. So
secret
protocol. And you've worked this out for yourself, haven't you?
And it was in the depth of a negative spiral, because basically for all of you that have done the courses, you would all know about foreign events. So I was living in, my partner moved out of the house, my ex moved out of the house, and so I was living in a foreign event. Everywhere I looked, it was a foreign event. So it was very easy for me to sort of slip back into a negative spiral. So, I was in the depth of one at one point, and what I did, this is my little protocol. I aligned, so I'm in spirit, I see and act like the creator sees and acts, and did the macro control. And then I used the E equals VS formula. So I placed the formula E equals VS into my solar plexus, into my eyes, into my ears, into my mouth. I placed it on top of every vertebra of my spine, right down to my coccyx, into my matrix point, under my left shoulder blade. Into every chakra, and I was reaffirming the objective, which was transforming all negative information. And that just was just all of a sudden, it went from absolute noise, emotional noise, mental noise, to just stillness, which was great, amazing.
So after your partner moved out, then you were left with having to handle, the everything, and of course the bills and all the rest of it. So you were thinking of, what am I going to do with that? I'll need to get somebody else in, and you got somebody else in, and that was another foreign event.
Yes, absolutely. So it was another foreign event. So basically, but it was really interesting because it showed me my pattern. So I bless that for what it was. I'd never seen a pattern so clear. I suppose in my inner battle with, what had happened, I, pulled into my matrix, an exaggerated version of it, but anyway, yes.
And so you're able to, you actually
eradicated him
well,
very
you
quickly.
did it from internally, didn't you?
Yes.
You actually changed it, your internal world around it, put out what you were wanting, and basically he got rid of himself.
What did it take, 24 hours?
Yeah, it was quick, and it came down to me making that decision. Making that decision that it just happened very quickly.
It can be that quick. Aurora's saying, thanks, great to see and hear you both. Personal say, always so powerful. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we brought Susan in, because, everybody's heard from us in a while and they start to think, oh, well, it's just you. But it isn't just us. There are people that have experienced that. Yeah. But, if you had sort of dealt with this that was going on for you and sort of looked at the old way of doing it, where you go out and try to fix it in the external world, it takes a lot longer.
Yeah, and even, like I have always worked on myself with other modalities, always. And it wasn't working. Nothing was working.
So everything was in default. It wasn't working anymore.
And so, which is beautiful, because I did ask for simplicity. I wanted, I wanted simplicity in my life. I wanted more, I wanted to become empowered, more empowered. So I really got what I asked for. But the power of, taking information, negative information out of your energy, out of your 5 minutes, your sphere of happiness. I've done that before.
5 minutes sphere of reality.
Just taking information out of everywhere. Negative information gets stuck there all the time. So being able to just do that within a couple of seconds, a couple of minutes is it's amazing, because with other modalities you can bang on for a while.
Yeah.
And you might only get to like a few levels, not all of the levels.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and a couple of times, there was a little bit of an SOS. I think Brian was a little bit in tuned with you and happened to give you a ring one day when you were having a little meltdown.
Yeah.
So has it, helped you with also being able to just have somebody who's not in your stuff help to guide you along it?
100%. And I think that 100%. And I think for me also it was having like a positive male, a positive male role model there, reminding me who I am.
Yeah.
gets me teary. It was like I joke and say Brian's the what is it, the etheric heart surgeon, and
my God,
and you were the spiritual plumber. Is that what
you you brought that up. Yeah, people used to ask me what I do, and they expect to hear something, when you're doing spiritual work, and I say, I'm a spiritual plumber. I help you clear the shit out of your life,
And then Brian comes in with his big, what do you call those things that they put on the heart for heart? They're resuscitating a person. What do you call them? I was like, hello, I'm back. Yeah.
So having gone through those experiences for yourself, and then being able to apply it as a practitioner, because what have you also been doing with your clients?
Okay, yeah, so because I've experienced that myself, I've experienced the power of it. I have been implementing some controls with clients in sessions, especially stepping out of foreign events. A lot of the time, a client actually, I like to clear their information off them before I start now. So I'll get them up on the table, and then I'll put the E equals V. I love that formula. That's my favourite at the moment. Equals VS. So I put that into the client's, chakras, and anywhere I'm feeling or sensing that there is an overload of information.
So you're just imagining it, in a sphere, or just imagining the formula, placing the formula into those?
I see basically the formula equals VS written in the energies, or you can just imagine that over the area that you're intending to place the formula.
Yep. Yeah. Brilliant. And you were saying that, when you were taking them through stepping out of foreign events and also changing the past, you were just getting them to say the words.
No, what I did is I would just let them know that I'd be going back through the timeline in my work, and then I'd just say, okay, so we're just going to step out of this event. So I want you to just close your eyes and listen to my words.
Okay, so they were listening to it.
Yeah.
Good. So they could, and it was, but you made them aware that it was for them.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And with the formula, E equals VS, like before placing it into their energies, I tell them what the formula is for, and they're all for it, of course, when they hear it's about transforming information. Yeah. So they're open and receptive to actually allowing it to work.
And also, I guess, by telling them too, and that they're able to do it for themselves.
Yep.
Yeah, because you're also at the same time sort of teaching them as well.
Yep. And I said, look, if you want to. A client came in the other day, and she loved the little snake, the additionals.
Yeah. So,
but I told her she could basically, in red, write on a piece of cardboard, keep it in her back pocket, or write it on her body to help to transform information. She can do it for herself. Yeah.
Okay. So some of you said you can't hear us very well, so we haven't turned the sound down, but we'll keep talking a bit louder.
Okay.
So you can hear it. So
that's amazing. Two quiet Aussie women.
Yeah, we're very quiet, us Aussie women. I'm not too sure about that, but anyway. So that's certainly it's been brilliant then for you by the sounds of it.
Yeah, and I'm so much more creative. Like I've got my little formula that I do. Oh, sorry. I've got my little formula that you all heard that I do in the morning now. So I'm sure that will change along the way, but at the moment that's working for me. Yeah. But I'm getting more creative with it.
Yeah. So did everybody hear Susan's formula that she did in the morning? If somebody just let us know, because that was really lovely just to know, because she was saying how she's been able to get a bit more creative through her own practice in applying something. So yes, everybody heard that.
Okay,
so that's good. Yeah. That's very good.
And or the sphere of living matter too. I like to do that to harmonise my mind, body, spirit, and soul.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, or beautification if you're a girl listening. I like that one.
Okay, so a few people said they didn't hear your formula. So do you just want to say loudly again what your formula is?
Okay, so this is my formula. and this kind of helped me out of the depths of a negative spiral back into my heart. So I placed the formula E equals VS into my solar plexus, into my heart, the back of my heart, my throat, the back of my throat. Basically, I placed it anywhere I sensed there was negative information. I placed it also on each vertebra of the spine and on my matrix point, which is just on the left, underneath the left shoulder blade.
Great.
Yeah.
And then with your client then, because some people didn't hear what happened with your client.
Okay, so when a client comes in, I like to clear up negative information as soon as they jump up on the table. So I will let them know what E equals VS means, and once they hear that it's about transforming information, they're very open and receptive. And so I tell them that I'm going to place that into various areas on their body. And then I just say the objective, transforming all negative information. So they're, open and receptive to it.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
And then you say the words about getting them to listen to the words of stepping out of foreign events and also going back and changing the past, because you can't change their past. They have to change it. So them listening and focusing on the words also helps that.
Yeah.
So you're actually educating the client as they're going along.
Absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Oh, good. So thanks for that. Susan's going to be joining us as we go through a little bit further today, just interjecting with some of her more experience. But I hope you found our spotlight on Susan. We'll be doing some more spotlights on other people in the next few webinars, just so you get a sense of how the journey's going for everybody. Okay, so have you been feeling under pressure? Oh, my God, I don't know what's been happening with it feels like in the last month, all of a sudden somebody's let the floodgates of foreign events open and it's just coming in. And interestingly enough, the more we talk to people, the more they have felt that their stuff is, where they thought they'd sorted it out, it's actually coming up to the surface. How have you felt with that, for yourself or clients? What have you noticed?
Definitely. There have been a lot of clients that come in and say, as you were saying before, I thought that we worked on this. Why is it coming up again? But it's, that's when you just do the foreign events. You just snap them out of foreign events,
And it's pretty, and I'll have to say for me, I've had some stuff come up for me as well, and I can clearly see how it's a pattern. When it's come up again, I thought, like you, gosh, I've worked on this. How can it be still an issue? And yet I see the pattern, and it, I think poor Brian had to put up with me crying the other day. I was so angry and so.
That's what we have children for.
Yes, that's kids drive you to anger. But really, what happened was the situation that happened just really, really highlighted, and it was just like, I'm ready to deal with this. And then that's what I had to do, because it is so easy when stuff happens to really spiral yourself down, especially into the negative thinking.
And I think with different disciplines in the past, we've dealt with it on a mental level, we've dealt with it on an emotional level, and we may have dealt with it at an energetic level. But that, what do you want to call it? It's in the fabric of our matrix, of our informative matrix, there is sitting those old programs. And we may, and they may not even be ours. They might be somebody rubbed past us on a train station, or they might be great grandmothers. But at the moment, there just seems to be so many people dealing with things that they thought, I buried this years ago. I did a lot of work on this. I paid a lot of money and spent a lot of time on a couch on this. And it's still, for some reason, it's reappeared. And what, Grabovoi was talking about in some of his material is really it is sitting in the matrix. And the really good thing about RCK, or Russian creator knowledge, is we can now remove its fabric out of the informative level, and that will cascade down and re-support the collapses below. So we're really blessed to have the tools and to have the techniques to totally erase it. And as we're now after 2012 and we're supposed to be stepping out of duality, these are perfect tools for that.
Yeah, and it's interesting just going back into this, when you start spiraling down into the negativity, because that's what I found myself doing, and I was awake in the middle of the night, and my head's just spinning around, thinking of where this else has happened, and just how you get into spiral. And my first thought was, okay, I can either keep continuing this spiral, or what I can do is, apply some of the tools. So that I was lying in bed, and the first thing I did was, okay, there's obviously information in my matrices. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to clear up my matrices, because I thought I don't want to get out of bed yet because it's nice and toasty in here. So the first thing I went through and cleared all the matrices. I used the cube of mirrors, E = V cube of mirrors, to remove any negative information that was in there. And then I noticed straight after that chatter that was going on in my head, the spiral, it just stopped. So that really got me over that.
And you look at the external world, what the media is punching out at the moment, the stories, what the politicians are doing. And if you're able to step back and be the observer, you just have to laugh, because it's happening so quickly and so insanely.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a foreign event.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, there has been so much of that in the media. I mean, I think with Paul Moira would probably be able to talk to us better about what's been going on over in Greece. But I don't know. So I think Moira's here. So let me just see if Moira, are you able to talk this morning? Hi, Moira. Hi, how are you? Moira.
Hello, Moira.
Can you guys hear me?
We can. How are you?
I'm great. Sorry, I was distracted for a second there. I was going to do a Brexit, actually. I've got 3 kids in the background.
Well, so I mean, I don't want to hold you up for long because I know you've got kids, but how's it been? How's it been going in Greece? Is there a lot of foreign events over there?
Yeah, and my God, it's crazy over here, actually. Everybody's getting, Pauline is here with me as well, and we're both listening in. And we were just saying how everybody is getting caught up in what's happening. It's quite crazy here.
Yeah, well, from our point of view, from the world point of view, we're looking at what's being played out in the television and certainly in the papers. And, it seems like to the rest of us that you guys are in a huge, huge mess, and there would have to be a lot of fear around the fact that, and this is what we're hearing, and I don't know whether it's true, or your banks are closing and nobody's able to access money. And
yes. And actually, it all depends on today, really, and what happens at the meeting this afternoon, and we'll see. But it's exactly as Brian said. You have to become the observer, and that's the simplicity of it. If you get caught up in the event, then you're lost. It's becoming the observer. Is exactly that. But things are pretty bad in terms of a lot of people have really suffered their pensions, their salaries, and they can't get money out. But other than that, there's nothing really that has changed. Besides that, there's plenty of food in the supermarkets. I think the media have made it worse than it actually is.
Okay.
So nothing much has changed. It's pretty cool here. Everybody's pretty calm. Everybody's a bit wound up and caught up in it, but it's calm and it's good. And the banks have been closed, but I think everything's been pretty orderly. And maybe after today, if we do exit or anything happens, then things could take a turn for the worse, but so far so good.
Yeah.
So the only recommendation we can make is go within and harmonise within.
Yeah.
Yes. And become the observer. That immediately takes you away from the foreign event.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thanks, Maura and Pauline. We'll let you get back.
Thanks.
See you guys.
Okay. Lovely to hear you both.
Yeah, thanks. So we can really get caught up in what's going on in the external world, and I think if you can remember always, just I step out of foreign events. Every time you hear something that starts to spiral you down again, is to.
And remember, a foreign event is anything that takes you away from your light.
Yeah. Brian and I had a really good another experience in the last couple of weeks. At the start of the year, we had a young guy he's around 30 come to us. He's married, his wife's pregnant, and they already have a daughter. And he when he rang me up, he already had a tumour. And so Professor Leslie was arriving, and I said to this guy, look, your body needs some support at the moment. Russian knowledge will help you, but really physically you need some support. And when I chatted to him, he'd started to do his own research, and he was heading down doing the juicing and all the foods, and he was starting to make his own hemp oil. He had a rife machine. He had also a hyperbaric chamber. So he was really on the path of not going down into having to have surgery, chemotherapy and radiation. And things were going really, really well for him. And every time he had good news, he'd give me a call. And so we had a call with him probably back about April, and he said he'd been and had a scan, and the news was there was actually some dying of the tumour, he was just delighted. He even rang Professor Leslie and talked to him. And of course, he belonged to a cancer support group, and the people in the group were very looking to him as the leader because they were watching him make the changes. And so there were people coming to him and saying, "Could you also make me some of the hemp oil?" And so that's what he was doing. And then he shared with us that what would happen also is those people would start to talk about their miseries and what was happening, and his wife kept nudging him and saying, stop listening to everybody's stuff. You don't need to. Well, then he had his next scan, and it had started to grow again, and he was just devastated that it had grown because he'd done all the right things, and he just couldn't understand how he could be in this situation where he'd done all the right things. And he was in a bit of a state. His wife rang up and said, "Can I bring him around because I can't. He's really struggling." So we had a chat and we talked about the fact that certainly he'd done all the things on the physical and chemical level to help him, but he hadn't addressed some of the core issues for him. And it was very clear in the conversation with him, he was very hard on himself, very self-critical in that.
But also he had, in helping out all of those other people, saving all those other people, he had depleted himself. And cancer is a disconnection and a lack of light in the cells. So by draining himself to assist others, his cancer actually reversed. So the light disappeared out of some of his cells. So it got larger, and he got tighter and more depleted. So really what the story was, and why we wanted to share it with you, was highlighting is that the reason we say work on yourself, lift your own vibration, is really, really important. If you try and do it in the external world, it'll deplete you. You've got to work within.
Yeah. So he came over here and we said to him, "Look, you've done all the other levels, but you now need to address this information." We spent about 3 hours with him and started to introduce him to some of the tools. We showed him how to use the time and space matrix and also the Cuban mirrors. And immediately afterwards, he felt calmer, really calmer. And he said, "Definitely, I'm going."
He went from seriously emotionally depleted and depressed and buying the doctors.
Well, that's before.
Yeah.
But absolutely. So he started to do some work. He started to do Soul Code online and learn at home, and his wife was joining. And then basically he ended up with a lot of pressure on the brain. So long story short, and the doctors have said that he needs to have an operation and that he must have chemotherapy and radiation, which once again he started beating himself up and saying, "This is not where I wanted to go. I've never wanted to do this. I've let myself down. I've let everybody else down." And his wife actually brought him here last week because he was due to go into the operation. And seriously, really, I've never seen anybody so depressed and spiraled into the foreign event of what he'd heard from the doctor, and he started talking about death and the fact that he will, some other man will end up being the father to his kids, and his wife would be calling somebody else their husband, and so he was really, really, really in it. And once again, he was with us for about 3 hours. He's so emotional, and during that time we were able to say, okay, you might have done everything on this level, but there's a whole different level you don't know about.
There's 3 or 4 different realms.
We started talking about the other people out there. We're talking about Bruce Lipton, and we're also looking at Greg Braden, and just giving him had asked him whether he'd seen What the Bleep and all that sort of thing, and he said he hadn't. And I said, well, there's a whole lot of information you don't know, so perhaps we start looking at that. So I showed him the video on the internet that shows the tumour from Greg Braden that shrinks within 3 minutes, the bladder cancer, and that sort of was able to put him into another realm of thinking, oh, actually there's something else maybe I don't know. So once again, he then was in a good spot that we took him through again the time-space matrix and the cubic mirrors, and he left calm. He left centered. He had no conversation in his head about the death. It was like a whole transformation of just where he was, so that he could at least go into the operation and in a good state of mind, because he wasn't. So, and of course the diagnosis with the doctor, he really just got into it and what it actually meant, because they were talking about the fact that he was going to die and they were just going to give him some time. And you might say logically, okay, well, that's probably true, but the point is it was just information, and it was just what he needed to clear.
Look, the doctors will give you their statistical view based on the past.
Yeah.
But in my case, they said I'd be on dialysis. I've been in a dialysis machine for 4 years.
Yeah.
In my case, they said it would come back in probably 2 years. Well, it's heading for 4, and it still ain't come back, and it ain't coming back. You can, and this is no criticism on the medical system. They have their point of view, and they are there for emergency medicine, and they are really, really good at diagnosis. But the rest of it, the food, the diet, the mental, the emotional,
yep.
and the energy and the energetic level and the informative level, they know nothing about.
Yeah.
And that's really our role, to educate and to share and to get people to question and people to go and find their own journey.
Yeah.
Because as we all know, cancer is a journey.
Yeah. So just wanted to share with you how, we can easily, in these times when there's so much external pressure, really roll into the foreign event and a good chance to step out of it, because you have a toolbox, you know what to do. When you feel that you are spiralling down, then just be able to step out. Susan mentioned...
before you jump onto that, but for practitioners, it is really important, and this particular story just reminds us how important it is to be hygienic around what we're doing. Make sure we clean our spaces before we work, and make sure we cut away from it, and make sure we don't fall into the mistake of depleting ourselves, because our human nature is programmed to help, right? To give, but we really need to make sure that if we're going to be using the techniques and the tools in our practices, make sure we're doing it in a teaching role, and also make sure that we're not getting caught up in the client's foreign events, and we're not depleting ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Susan mentioned before about using the sphere of living matter. It was funny because I also had thought about talking about that. It's a really quick tool to use for anything. And as we said, we've given you a foundation to work with the tools. But in the end, as Grabovoi said, your consciousness can be as creative as it wants as far as information. So I thought today, for some practice, this might be a really neat thing to be able to do. And in this case, you know that the spine has attached to it, via the nerves, all the information that relates to different organs and systems in our body. Also along the spine are energy informative points. And for people that have done transformation and also our transition webinar series, you'll know that we do some norming of our energy informative points on our spine, and we do this regulation of spine. So it's like Russian knowledge's version of chiropractic, I guess. And so here's a nice other way that we could use the sphere of living matter, where we actually stream it like liquid gold. So we take a small sphere from our large sphere with living matter, and we give it the objective of norming all our energy informative points along the spine and harmonizing all the organs relating to those energy informative points. So I'm going to take you through a control today with that objective, and we're going to do it in 2 parts. You make a choice on which way you want to do. You either do it on your physical body, or if you like, you can do it on a hologram of your physical body where you're looking at the spine. So either way, it's your choice to notice, and you might want to do then in your own practice the opposite to see what you actually feel like. So we're going to start off doing a formal control, start off with our connection with our soul, immediately our macro control. We might also step out of any foreign events tonight because there have been so many foreign events worldwide. It might be just a nice to do that, because we also know that negative information likes to stick to cervical 3 at the top part of your spine, also around thoracic 7 and 8, and also usually under the left shoulder blade. So this will help to clear up any of that negative information. And we might also just go back and change the past to any information. Then when we get to the method, then this is where I'll just guide you through that. So sit in a comfortable position and we'll just go through this together with you. So we start with our objective, which is using our sphere of living matter for norming any energy informative points and harmonizing the organs that relate to those points. So we start off by saying, I'm in spirit. I see and act as the Creator sees and acts. I'm standing in the light stream of eternity on the platform of the Creator knowledge. Our macro control, rescue and harmonious development for the planet and all mankind. First of all, we're going to step out of any foreign events that may have caused some negative information to be along our spine. I step out of all foreign events and I go my own way, the bright path of the Creator. All the participants and events go their bright paths. Our paths do not cross. I send a light impulse from my soul and a light impulse from the Creator's soul, and I fix the result according to all parameters of creation and on all levels of reality now and for all times. And now we go back to 1 hour before the trigger of the cause of any negative information being on my spine. I did not participate in the upcoming events. I went my way, the bright path of the Creator. All the participants and events went their bright paths. Our paths did not cross. I send a light impulse from my soul and a light impulse from the Creator's soul, and I fix the result according to all parameters of creation and on all levels of reality, now and for all times. Now we're going to take a small sphere of living matter from our large sphere of living matter, which is just above our head. We give the objective to this small sphere of living matter, regulation of all my energy informative points along the spine and harmonization with the organs that correspond. So we take this sphere and we place it from the atlas to the coccyx in a stream of living matter. And you imagine as that sphere streams liquid gold,
like liquid
honey, all the way from the atlas, moving through every energy informative point along your spine, until it arrives at your coccyx. What I want you to do is hold your objective, which is about the energy informative points and harmonizing regulation of your energy informative points and harmonizing all the corresponding organs. So hold your objective, and also in your imagination, just see the liquid gold flowing through those energy informative points from the atlas to your coccyx, and notice what might be happening in your physical body. We're going to hold the objective for a minute. So hold your objective, hold your concentration of the liquid from the sphere of living matter running right through the spine, and sense or see what's happening in your physical body. So keep your concentration. Hold your objective at the same time. This stream of living matter clears all negative information along all those energy informative points in your spine, clearing and restoring to the norm, and at the same time harmonizing the organs that relate to it, those energy informative points. And we finish by saying, I send a light impulse from my soul and a light impulse from the Creator soul, and I fix the result according to all parameters of creation and on all levels of reality, now and for all times, on the 11th or, on the 12th or 13th, wherever you are, at the time, wherever it is. It's just about 13 minutes past 8.
Well, some people might be in the past.
So we'd love to hear from some of you. How was that? What did you notice? You can either pop your hand up, or you might want to make a comment in the question box. So just let us know.
There's a hand there.
There's a hand up, but I don't know. I can see that Padma and Teresa have got their hand up, and I'm not too sure whether it's because it's been up all the time, but let's just have a chat to Padma. Padma, I see your hand's up, so I'm not too sure if it was from the last time. Are you there? No, she's not there. Can't hear from her. All right, I'll pop her on mute. And I can also see that Teresa's Dilac's also got her hand up, so let me just unmute Teresa. Teresa, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, yes.
How was that for you? How was that control for you?
It was, I still have feelings like it was everything moving down to my back, down back, and there is still there. Still there.
Still there.
Still going.
Still moving.
Sensation. I don't know what is this, but it's some sensation in my back,
Yep.
long down.
Lower down in the back. So there might be some negative information that was down there that's starting to harmonize in that area.
Yes, but I felt like it was from the head back down spinal.
Yes.
And stop in the back.
Beautiful.
Down. Yes.
Good to notice. Good to notice.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing. I'm going to pop back on mute, Teresa. And I see Moira's made a comment. She said she had coolness all down her spine. And Padma, she's written here, I'd like to share, I was moving a lot. And at some point, a man in a green shirt or checkered green shirt tapped me on my shoulder. Oh, my gosh.
You had a visitor.
You had a visitor. Oh, gosh. All right. Well, I hope does that mean you were feeling okay or it felt a little awkward? So I don't know whether maybe
Pop her on. Let's have a chat.
I don't know whether you can chat. Do you not have? Are you able to chat, Padma? Can you just let me know, or what is it about? I'm okay. Yeah, okay. So you might have somebody that's actually that you can't see that's in the room, and you might just need to clear the room. I mean, it's how did you feel when that person tapped you on the shoulder?
Are you feeling calm or are you feeling agitated?
Calm or agitated. Or you can also ask your informative centre, do I need to clear the room where I am now, yes or no, and just get a yes or no answer. And then if you do, then you can do that in a number of ways. You can either, as Susan was using the E equals VS, you could use spheres in each corner of the room, or you could use the E equals VS cube of mirrors over the whole room and give it the objective to shrink in and capture all negative information. So it's another way that you can do that. Okay, you feel calm. Okay,
that's good.
That's all right. So maybe it's a guide with you that's wanting to show.
Yeah, checkered shirt. Very cool.
There's no one at home. Okay, yeah, there's no one at home, but obviously there's no one at home that you can see with your physical eyes. But this might be somebody that's not able to see
from the spirit world.
Maybe from the spirit world. So if you're feeling
calm, it's fine.
It's fine. If you're feeling agitated, it's not okay. So that's good to hear. So thanks very much for that. I don't know if anybody else is having anything. You know who's been a little bit quiet? Andrula.
Andrula's never quiet. That's not possible.
Andrula.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. Hi everyone.
Hi. How are you with that one? All right?
Yes, I feel really calm, very, very sort of quite spaced out. I could feel things sort of clicking and shifting down my spine to my knees.
Beautiful.
But I've got a little bit of a headache and sore throat.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if it's...
Go on.
So add some extra for the throat and the headache.
Yeah, I had to do something else, I think, yeah. But it's lovely to hear you all, and this has been fantastic. Thank you.
Beautiful. Well, and Drula, you could also use a sphere of living matter and place it around, place it into the area of your head and into your throat, and stream it like when we do the opening of the heart. You can also see that it streams and actually expands in the whole area of your head and down your throat.
Yeah, I feel a little bit tearful, and I'm not quite sure why would that be?
So that would mean that you have some information probably in your emotional matrix that you need to clear. But if that's the case and you're feeling like that, then I would clear all your matrices, including your energetic matrix, because it's giving you some feedback that you've got some negative information there, and so you could have also picked it up from any of your clients as well. So it could be in your etheric matrix. Brian's nodding his head and going, "It's in her etheric." But just for the exercise,
it's not yours; it's a client.
It's a client. So go through and just check, and when you get to the matrices, have a look and notice whether there's any cloudiness or darkness, and then just use your cube of mirrors. And I can guarantee, Andrula, if we were talking in another half an hour, you'd say, I feel calm.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, both of you.
That's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Okay. Pop you back on.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
So there's some really good exercises. Oh, who's with me? Padma, you have you asked your informative centre? Is this a guide that's with you?
Singapore, Padma.
No, this is not. No. Have you asked your informative centre whether it's
I don't get that it's heavy.
Not yet. Okay, we'll check that. All right, so that's a nice one you can get to play with, and of course when you, as Andrula showed you, sometimes it brings up something, and then all she needed to do was clear. So it's a good one to do. Brilliant. So where are we up to now? Okay, so I just want to mention something that's been happening, and sort of happened by accident because
by market demand.
By market demand, I guess. Brian has been doing some personal mentoring with people where he's been doing some one-on-one coaching. Amazing. Because, Brian gets quite intuitive. And for some of you who Brian has connected with you out of the blue and said, I've been thinking about you, and we've often had people say, oh, yeah, I was just actually thinking about you too. So what happened with you, Susan? Because you were going through a bit of stuff.
There was a few times where I think I was not in a good space. I was in a bit of a spiral, and this is before I twigged on to the power of clearing foreign events, you know. And Brian would call and go, how's everything going? Are you doing your controls? And I'd go, yeah. And I think he's very, very in sync.
So you came over and you've done a couple of one-on-ones with Brian.
Yes.
So how's that helped?
Oh my gosh, I think amazing. Yes, and
And the interesting thing is, you did the work.
Yeah, you weren't doing it. He wasn't doing it for you. He was just helping you, like a third person, be objective and say, okay, have you looked at this? Have you looked at that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
And so how's that helped you then when now, because you're at
it's given me the power to be able to, know that I can do it myself and to be creative. And I think the work with Brian, apart from being an etheric heart surgeon,
that means I can put my fees up, doesn't it?
A lot of the time when we're in our stuff, we forget our power, we forget who we are, and we become the event. Work with Brian made me remember who I am. So that is really amazing.
Well, I love that. Sometimes you can become the event. Oh, absolutely. We can get so lost in our events. So just letting you know now that we've freed Brian up a little bit, and if you are feeling like you are lost and you're feeling a bit perplexed and disorientated and bewildered, and you know you've got a big toolbox there, but you sort of can't get a handle on it.
No, you've become the event.
You've become the event, as Susan said. Then please drop us a line and Brian can talk to you a little bit more about how he works with you. And for those people in Australia, obviously you can come and sit with Brian and go through some work with him. So that's just something we'd like to help you get more use out of what you've got already.
Can I just say
something? Yeah, you can say something else.
So apart from all the clearing and all that sort of stuff, it puts you into that space of, okay, what do I want to create for me? What do I want to create? Because that's where I'm at now. It's like, oh, wow, it's like clean slate. What do I want to create for me?
It's a candy store.
Yeah. So
without the calories.
Without the calories. The candy store without the calories. But, the funny thing is, because we get so used to in life just waking up to another day and putting up with what the day gives us instead of sitting down and creating
designing the day.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's one thing that I learned from this whole thing is that I had the huge pattern that came up for me that kept recurring. And I think that for me, sometimes it's not until something gets totally bad that you make a big change.
Yeah.
And the pattern for me was about compromise. Compromising. And it made me really recognize how it was just like a subconscious knee-jerk reaction to just always compromise. And so now I'm not.
Oh, beautiful. That's great. It's good to realise that. So, and sometimes you need a bit of help and, I'll lend Brian out to you. He seems to be. I just want to know, Brian, why all my girlfriends have turned up in your phone.
Because they ring me.
All the girls love Brian. I don't know why it is.
Oh, there's a few boys.
Okay. Beautiful.
Sandy calls me all the time.
Sandy, yeah, your mates. Some hot dates, everybody, because we're getting to the end of our session here. Some of you, as I mentioned before, have done Soul Code as a webinar series but haven't done the second part, which is transition. We've actually broken our transformation workshop into 3 series because not everybody can be at a workshop. We've already held the Soul Code and the transition webinars for this year. We won't be doing another series of live transition webinars until later in the year, but we still have the recorded series. So that's 4 webinar series where you have the manual and the slide notes. And we're also, I'm lending Brian out again, we're going to give anybody who wants to continue and do this work a bonus coaching session. So this is with Brian. If you want to do that in the next 24 hours, you can go to our website, e=vs.com.au, and you can go into the booking area, and that has the information there. And this is for people that have only done Soul Code and not done transition. If you've done transformation, you've already done this work.
So how it will work is that you'll go through the recordings, you'll read through the notes and manuals and make your list of questions, and then we'll connect up after you've done that, and we'll just clarify anything that's you're not quite understanding, and try and point you in direction to start and create the stuff that you want in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll be asking the questions, and you'll be coming up with the answers yourself.
Our next global masterclass is, and I've put these 2 dates because tonight we've done the UK, Singapore, and Australia and Europe, and tomorrow morning we're doing our US, Canada group in Australia. So we have those 2 dates. So yours will be the 13th for tonight's group. Also,
so log that in the diary.
Log that in the diary. For our people in Australia, we have our next workshop coming just before Professor Yap comes after on the 18th. So we've got our workshop 15th, 16th, 17th. And this year, because some people that have been nagging me.
Nagging, push.
In Australia, we're introducing Infinitude, which is our 2-day advanced workshop. We've been running this in Singapore already. We've run 2 Infinitudes in the last year. And so after popular demand, we're running Infinitude. So this Infinitude is the next level. And this is where we really work with your consciousness. We really start pushing you to notice the changes. And I know that when we ran it in Singapore, we had an amazing group there earlier in April, and they got some
serious expansion.
So it was very, very, very good. So that's what's happening in the next little while until we get to you guys back in September. There's just one thing I'd like you to remember, of course, is to remember, be the light. Don't give the light to other people. Don't go out there and try to rescue them. You need to be that place. You need to have that within you. And when you do, then people start noticing, as Susan's ex-partner noticed her shift, her frequency changed. Mm-hmm. And when you raise your light, then you give people the opportunity to actually do the same, to step up. What would you like to say?
I was like, yeah, it's interesting because past the breakup, a lot of people who I had that were actual clients that have been working for the last 3 years, a lot that I that I hadn't seen for a while, have said, what have you done? You know, it's like one of the guys said to me, I can actually see you now.
Wow.
Yeah,
nice.
And I was like, I thought, there I was all along thinking that, I was really showing myself, but
you were just putting the wall up.
That's right.
Yeah. People don't really.
That's the missing 5.
I'm glad you said that.
No, here comes the numbers again.
No, I'm not going to do any numbers, I promise. But no, I'm glad you really brought that up, because that is what I say all the time. And I guess some people think it's just me saying it, but truly, when you start to change, people start to notice, and then it's feedback from the external world. Things are changing.
Yeah.
So thanks, everyone, for being with us. As I said, this recording will be available within the next 24 hours. We'll send that out to you, and we'll see you again in September when we have our next master.
If not before.
If you have any questions, of course, in between that, please feel free to email us, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So have fun practicing and enjoying your consciousness journey, and we'll see you in a couple of months. Bye for now.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your days or nights. Ciao.
Bye.